Hello, everyone, and welcome to our first team previews of next year's World Tour season, the 2023. And where better to start when the number one team of last year, Jumbo Visma, the giants of the sport right now. As always, I'm joined by Mr. Gregor himself, Ewan Wilson, and Ewan, Jumbo Visma. Well, Jonas Vingegaard winning the Tour, Wout van Aert here, there, everywhere, winning all the 3 points jerseys in ASO stage races. Yeah, where really to start?
Exactly where to start with this squad. The strength and depth is everywhere from rainbow jerseys as well. Let's not forget Tobias Foss's win in Australia this September through to Grand Tour victories, classic success. And I mean, every sort of measurement of victory they seem to tick off in 2022.
First, we're going to start with some of the overall results, not really focusing too much on the Grand Tours. We'll go a bit more into depth there. But Ewan, what really stands out for you apart from the Grand Tours?
Yeah, as you mentioned, I think that really strong run they had building up to the Tour de France with that string of strong team performances at Paris-Nice, particularly that first stage when we saw Laporte, Roglic, and Van Aert go off over the top of the final climb of the day to make it a 3-up team time trial all the way to the line. That really was quite the picture and somewhat foreboding for what was to come for the rest of the year and Jumbo Visma's domination in the French Republic. Going into the Tour de France, I mean, we all know what happened there. Even winning the Bretagne Classic, that was up there. Podiums as well in the likes of Paris-Roubaix. It really was just exceptional from Jumbo Visma.
So before we talk about the Grand Tour's aspirations for next year and a bit of what we all know what they did anyway last year, transfers, Ewan, they've been somewhat busy with this. Some very strong names coming in: Wilco Kelderman, Dylan van Baarle, Jan Tratnik, Attila Valter, and Thomas Glogel. Glogel.
Glogue.
Glog. Apologies. But yeah, losing Tom Dumoulin, as we know, Mike Jonassen going to Intermarché, one to Group Bear, Chris Harper at the door as well, Pascal Ackermann, and David Decker. But I'm not going to ask you that because it's obvious. I think they've got more talent in that's gone out. But
Yes.
yeah, well, how do you find these signings? Very
Well,
interesting.
exactly. It is very interesting. Kelderman, I mean, we spoke about it in the transfer talks early this year. I think Kelderman is an absolutely stellar signing. He was super solid at Bora Hansgrohe, really good at Sunweb as well. And going into maybe the twilight of his career, the winter, maybe I could see him becoming a bit of a helper, a great domestique. We saw sort of preview of that at this year's Giro d'Italia with Jai Hindley. The damage Kelderman did on the Turin stage was gargantuan, and we might be seeing that next year on behalf of maybe Roglic or Jonas Vingegaard at a Grand Tour or at these other week-long stage races in the calendar. Dylan von Baarle from Ineos. I think this has kind of gone under the radar, a bit like Dylan von Baarle sometimes. He won Paris-Roubaix, let's not forget. But he's a super strong classics engine with him and Wout van Aert on the same project, even Laporte as well. It's going to be very threatening in the classics. And just even adding more depth to this project with Jan Tratnik and Attila Valter, it's really going to bring some more meat into those Grand Tour setups. Maybe as stage hunters or as solid teammates. And Tom Gloag is a fantastic talent from the United Kingdom who's going to add to the great youth development of this squad.
Yeah, Wilco Kelderman obviously also returning to the team. He left in 2017 for Team Somewhere, but I mean, he's only 31 years old. He still has, judging on the Valverde scale,
Yeah,
8 more years, 9 more years.
true. I guess maybe I was a bit hasty there to say that he was entering the final phase of his career, but he's been a guy who's been riding at the top level now for seven or so years. But regardless of what he does at Jumbo Visma, I think he will be a very valuable teammate. Don't underestimate Wilco Kelderman coming into the next year.
We should probably now move on to the Grand Tour section of this preview. And obviously, there are 3 of them. They won one of them last year, the Tour de France.
Mhm.
But you and the Giro d'Italia last year, we saw that it was, or this year, 2022, we saw that they took the rainbow jersey and 2 stage wins as well with Koen Bouwman. But yeah, how do you see their Giro going this year? And I should throw in the question, what should they do with Primoz Roglic? Because that is the
Yeah.
Slovenian elephant in the room as well.
Yeah, well, exactly. Let's address Roglic. He did an interview about, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, maybe, talking about his plans for 2023 following the his recovery from his injury from the Vuelta. And I quote, he says he wants to break more curses in France after his progress in 2022. This would only suggest that he's going to be targeting more French racing. In turn, the Tour de France, we would suspect in 2023. Whether this is the right decision or not, I don't know, but I would probably suggest going to the Giro for him. There's an awful lot of time trialing kilometers at next year's Corsa Rosa. That should favor Roglic on paper. Yes, there is a rainbow elephant in the room in terms of Remco Evenepoel, who's also targeting that race. But I certainly think it could suit Roggers down to a T. Looking elsewhere on their squads, I mean, a lot of this does depend on the Tour de France team that we will be talking about. But I think that there's a good space here for this team to be a strong wild card, regardless of whether they send Roglic or not. Over the past couple of years, they have been more of a wildcard team at the Giro. We saw with the Mala Azzurra this year, and we've seen with top 10 performances and stage wins in the past. The Giro has sort of been their maybe second, maybe tertiary focus in the calendar. But if they send the likes of Rowan Dennis, Attila Valter, Jan Tratnik here, these are strong guys who could go in a breakaway and probably win a stage. That could definitely be a strong setup or focus for the team to have with these stronger guys that might get neglected from a Tour de France lineup, but they could certainly shine at the Giro. They've also got plenty of young riders in the squad. We saw the likes of Hayes Leemreiser really shine this year. I'm sure they'll be looking to field some more Dutch young riders to that race, one of whom is Olaf Koy, who I think is going to be a fantastic prospect in the next year. He's been winning high-level sprints in 2022. And why not send him to the Giro?
Yeah, I think that's a very fair assessment. Hopefully, I really hope Roglic goes through the Giro. I think by that interview, probably not. But yeah, alluding to his curse not winning the Criterium du Dauphiné or Paris-Nice and doing both this year. So anyways, moving on to the yellow race that they managed to crack for the first time in the history, I think. The Tour de France, Jonas Vingegaard winning it, as we know, but Wout van Aert also winning the green jersey and Vingegaard also winning the polka dot jersey, much to the despair of one Simon Geschke. But Ewan, yeah, that was almost like the most impressive performance we've seen in a team in a Tour de France in a very long time. I think even comparable to the Sky Days when they were in the most dominant era. So, yeah. What did you think of it, and how can they improve on it?
Well, it's hard to improve on what seems to be perfection. This is undoubtedly the best team performance I've ever seen in a Grand Tour in my lifetime. Jumbo Visma really did. I mean, they brought the party at the Tour de France. A green jersey and a yellow jersey, a prospect I said before the Tour de France was completely unreasonable and almost impossible to get. Well, they proved that it was possible. They also won multiple stages on different types of terrain all across France, in every corner of the country, it seemed. With the win from Christophe Laporte in Cahors, we should not forget about that one. Wout van Aert winning the time trial in Rocamadour. We had Jonas Vingegaard winning at Granon as well, and Wout van Aert's 2 victories in Calais as well as Olympic City in Lausanne. See, they even won in Switzerland at the Tour de France. It really was impressive. They faced adversity, but every time they seemed to be pushed down, they got back up again. And it really was a show of strength, fortitude, and resilience from this project. And it's going to be a hard act to follow in 2023.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. The curse of defending the yellow jersey. We've spoken about the curse of the rainbow jersey, but actually winning the Tour de France is one of the most detrimental things to do in your career for some riders. Not for Tadej Pogacar, we know. But the question is with Jonas Vingegaard, does he have it in for another one?
Well, they call it the sophomore slump in music, where you can never follow up your debut album. And I mean, we wait to see if Vingegaard can. Bear in mind, he hasn't really. He's not a winner per se. He hasn't won a huge amount of stage races in his palmares. We do have a lot of sort of build-up races and context to have before next year? Will Vingegaard go to Paris-Nice, to Tirreno? What will Pogacar do as well, who seems to be the number one rival to Jumbo Visma? Looking at the team, even if they carbon copy the team from this year, Wout van Aert, Roglic, Vingegaard, Laporte, Benoot, Van Hooijdonk, Kruijswijk, and Kuss, it's a solid setup that would scare every team on the start line, I would suggest. But for Vingegaard as well, in terms of the routes, I mean, yes, the route probably favors Pogacar a little bit more, but I wouldn't say he has anything really to worry about. He is a very polyvalent rider. He can sort of crack every terrain, really. We haven't seen a huge weakness from him, which does make it interesting going into next year's season.
Yeah, I definitely think whatever, and even if we throw Kelderman into that team, that would
Oh,
just
yeah.
that's yeah, they're definitely the ones to beat in some respect, but UAE will definitely up their game as well. So now moving on to the afterthought of the 3 Grand Tours, the Vuelta España. Obviously, there was a bit of controversy this year with Primoz Roglic and Fred Wright, unfortunately, and yeah, that a bit overshadowed it. But Jumbo Visma looked very strong in the beginning. They have an impressive record over the last number of years. And do you think potentially Roglic is just going to come back for fighting and try and get another title and be the most winning rider at the Vuelta España?
I would think so. Roglic is very good at bouncing back up and sort of fighting. I think Roglic will be very hungry to win this year's Vuelta. We don't know who else is going to be there, whether there'll be a big sort of Pogacar or Evenepoel character as well. I mean, with the Vuelta, always depends on what happens in the rest of the season. With the Tour de France, who knows? Maybe Roglic wins the Tour de France and he wants a bit of a break for a while and misses out the Vuelta and Vingegaard goes instead or something. Who knows? Who knows? It is always the afterthought.
Not to forget the monuments, the classics. Ewan, they've had a few good results over the last few years. They've brought in, as we mentioned, Dylan Munbar, the defending Paris-Roubaix champion, and has finished up there in the Tour of Flanders as well. Wout van Aert still wanting to crack that cobbled monument. And yeah, how do you see it going this year, next year, 2023?
Yeah, well, Wout has said he wants to win a big fish of the classics. That's his quote, not mine. This means the Ronde or Roubaix, and he's hoping to tee up that with Strada Bianca, Sanremo, and Tirreno, the 3 Italian races, and he wants to ride out that form because he said that worked out very well in 2022, which it did. He was up there in most of the big name classics. I thought he was a little bit underwhelming in Milano Sanremo this year. I would have expected a little bit more. But elsewhere, I think he's definitely going to be in the mix. You can never rule out Van Aert out. However, if we have Mathieu van der Poel at full pelt for the Ronde van Vlaanderen, I'm sorry, I am going to pick van der Poel any day to win that race over Wout. But Roubaix, I think he definitely has it in his legs to win that kind of race. He's got the bike handling skills, the sort of flat engine, and he's quite race savvy. So I would probably suggest that is the one that he's most likely to get out of those 2 big fish classics.
So anyways, Ewan, finishing on predictions round, a bit of a different one this time, and it's going to be what will the biggest results be for the biggest 3 stars, Roglic, Vingegaard, and Wout van Aert?
I think Vingegaard will, if he stays in his bike, will make a podium for the Tour de France. Whether that where that will be, I don't know, because I personally think it's going to be really interesting. I think it's going to be closer than 2022, and I think Pogacar has a better chance. So I would say, yeah, either first or second. I think we haven't seen enough from Vingegaard in a 1 week long setup. He hasn't quite toppled Pogacar enough to make me super confident that he will be able to do it next year at the Tour de France. Yes, he did it this year, but that's still the only major stage race victory he has to his name. For Roglic, I think a podium at the Vuelta will be his number one thing for next year, probably with a win at sort of Paris-Nice along the way, I would suggest. And then for Wout van Aert, I'd say almost nailed on for a podium at Roubaix. And probably, dare I say, a win at Strada Bianca.
Fair enough. I'm going to say Jonas Vingegaard retains his Tour de France. Who saw that coming? Primoz Roglic wins the Giro. He might not even show up. And Wout van Aert wins Paris-Roubaix. So anyways, that's it for our first preview of the teams that are coming for the next season. Make sure to comment down below what you think Jumbo Visma will do and subscribe if you're new here. And make sure to check out the website where we'll have a detailed write-up of all the major teams on the calendar. But that's basically it from us. Thank you very much for watching and have a nice day.